What's going on YouTube? This is Amy's Bro, and today what we're going to talk about is my first impressions of the brand new system that Sony brought forth to us, the PlayStation 4. Now, a few things we will clear up right now. These are first impressions. This is not a full review. The reason it's not a full review is because I've really only spent not even the equivalent of 1 day on the system. So, but I have fiddled with this. This is a DualShock 4, and I have fiddled with, downloading games, and I actually have a game on there that is a great game. I think you should all be playing. I'll be talking about that at some point once I actually finish it, if Level 5 will ever cooperate with me. Anyway, let's talk about the actual system and this. And actually, since I have this in my hand, let's talk about this first. This is the DualShock 4 controller. Now, I know you've seen maybe first impression videos on this controller. Now, I've been handling this controller now for a little while on the PlayStation 4. And I'm going to just give some thoughts on it real quick. Now, I don't know how a lot of people game when they're playing the games. I sometimes tend to have my thumb in this position. So in other words, when you see like that, and you'll be like moving the thumbstick, the joysticks on here are comfortable, but when you have your thumb in that position for like 20 minutes, your thumb tends to almost feel like it's having a seizure, like it starts like shaking violently. I'm playing Resogun, and my thumb, I don't know if it was cramping or what, but on my right hand, which is my more dominant hand when I'm like typing and whatnot, started like shaking violently. So I don't know what that was from. But the controller moves well for what you're given. This doesn't bother me, the micro USB, because although I will say it took me a little bit to figure out how the hell to get the thing in there, because when I first went to pop it in, it wasn't like going in all the way. The second time I did, it was no problem. I haven't had to use touchpad yet on the controller, but I'm going to guess that when I get like games like Killzone eventually, I'm going to have to use it. Well, I've seen Killzone. I know I'm going to have to use this eventually, which is fine. So I actually like the idea of having a touchpad on the controller, because it gets a little bit more 2013 in some cases. You know what I'm saying? Because I've mainly been using this D-pad hasn't really been used, although I have been playing Need for Speed Rivals, which I'm going to explain something about when it comes to this controller in a minute. I actually love these triggers. Love them. The L1, R1, and especially the back bumpers. The 360 controller, I'm saying this now, is still my favorite, one of my all-time favorite gaming controllers, because the bumpers on the front felt right, and the buttons on the back actually felt like proper triggers. These are getting there. Still need a little work. I had a third-party controller for my PlayStation 3 that had triggers almost like the Xbox 360, and I loved them. If we did something like that on the back of here, I'd be wanting to marry this damn controller. Now then, the home button is, well, that's the button that gets you to and from your menus, and it works seamlessly. getting to and from your main. Maybe it's my connection, but it works great. I was talking to a friend of mine down at GameStop today, who works there, who did me the biggest favor of my life last night, and there's no way I could repair. None. Like, in a million years, anybody that does like a GameStop rant video, I'm saying this now, you genuinely need to either start connecting with your the people, the associates more, or you just need to stop shopping there, because those people down at the GameStop I go to are lovely people. I love them. They're almost like an extended gaming family, and I don't game that much anymore. Although with this, I might be now. So I still have my other hobby though, which I'm going to do a separate video about maybe after I do this one. But this speaker, okay, even if you have, I sometimes play with my TV muted, completely muted, alright? I was playing Resogun and I played Knack a little bit, okay? I'm on chapter 2 of Knack. This speaker, when you're getting the pieces to get your health back on Knack, you hear that, you hear like the click when the pieces are coming back, and then also when you're playing Resogun, the woman's voice that comes in here is so goddamn clear. It's almost like I'm listening to my computer speaker. And this is tiny. This is smaller than the two speakers I have sitting on my desk. And this was crystal clear for me. I love that. Absolute. Now, I don't know if you're supposed to use it at some point in a game. I haven't seen that yet. That'd be kind of cool, though. Like, if you're supposed to actually go up to it and go, say something like, open door. So, I don't know. Because you remember what back on this is going off topic a little bit. If you remember back like on the Dreamcast when they had that microphone and you actually had to use it to instruct Seaman? I wonder if you're going to have to use that in this game. Well, maybe that's what the PlayStation Eye is for. I don't know. I don't have that yet. I may eventually get it, because if I get that, if I ask for that for Christmas and I get it, I might actually try streaming with the PlayStation 4. So, just be on the lookout for that. Okay, what do we want to go on next here? Let's talk about this light bar for a second. Now, the games I have, I don't really have to use it yet. Well, I don't know about Assassin's Creed, so I don't know if that's totally accurate. But, like, this is actually pretty cool. The one thing I will say, if you own, say you're playing Need for Speed Rivals on the PS4, when you choose your career for the tutorial, cop or racer, this goes red. Now, the reason it goes red is because after you do one, the game forces you to do the other one. You have to. There's no way around it. So what happens is this goes red and basically locks the controller until you choose the other one to do the other tutorial. It's goofy, and it also does that when you're reading certain things on the bottom of the screen when you're in the garage of Need for Speed Rivals. It's a weird feature, and I don't know why they did that, but they did. So, what can you do, right? I haven't seen. I actually had to. This is no joke. I actually had to explain to my friend down at GameStop why this changes color when you're playing certain when she was playing Killzone, which is a game she hated. Which, by the way, I then threw Last of Us at her, and she was kind of, I think, skittish about it. But anyway, so this will change color to indicate how your life bar is. This also, if you have the eyes hooked up, will be used to help identify who's player 1 and who's player 2 when you're playing local games with someone. Okay, and that's fine. I have no issue with that. Like I said, I haven't had to use these much. These click fine. My only issue is this X button. I don't know what it is, but it looks... Is that supposed to be slanted in like that? Look, here's the bottom of the X button, and it looks like it's almost going into the controller. I don't know if that was by design, or if that was a defect on the controller, or what. But, yeah. Let's see, I talked about the home buttons, talked about the triggers. Now let's talk about the rest of the controller. And, look, here's the thing. We have a share button, we know what that's for. We have an options button. People get on this controller because it has no start and select button. By default, that button right there, which you won't be able to read it, but it says options. I think it says options. That's actually your pause button. Yeah. What happens is, like I'm playing Knack, and what you do is you click that button, and then the pause menu will show up. So that's actually by default your start button, your pause button. They just don't have a genuine pause button on here, which, from what I saw on the box of the I almost said 360 Xbox One controller, they kind of did the same thing. They kind of took away the standard start and select buttons. So I don't know like why they didn't. Like I get what you're trying to do, but when it kills you to put like a, if you're really going to put a start button, like say the old N64 controllers. Let's see, what could you? I guess you couldn't put anything on there. I guess you couldn't take anything out, could you? Because everything's needed. But like, say you didn't really need the share button, right? Whoops, that's up here, dummy. There we go. Say you didn't really need the share button. You could have put like a button up here to like pause the game or something, but I mean, it's fine. I mean, having this as your start button, I can live with. Okay? That's fine. The only issue with this is, okay, and there's two, and they actually deal with starting your game and with the keyboard. I'll explain what I mean. Games that traditionally you would hit a start button, which is obviously now your options button. Here's what they made you. Here's what they did to the designers. They said map one of your face buttons basically to the start button. Now here's the funny part. People that have criticized the Ouya, and I've watched one YouTuber do that, criticize the Ouya for not having a start button, so they had to map one of these buttons. Well, the PlayStation 4 controller does the same thing. Example. What game is it? Let's take Resogun. In order to start the game, you have to hit the X button. Okay? You don't hit the options button. You hit the X button. If you're going to make the options button a de facto start button, put this button as your start button. I don't get why you have to have this at it. I really don't. But they did, so c'est la vie, we'll deal with it. Okay. Next problem actually comes with the triggers. Because this controller, again, doesn't have a start button, remember that's your options button, they had to figure out what they were going to use to signify enter on your keyboard if you're using one of these instead of like an actual keyboard. So here's what they did. They made, not the X button because that's your enter button, they made this trigger, the R2 button, your enter button. Now I don't know about the rest of you, but I would rather be able to have clicked that. Okay, to be able to end it because I'm somewhat of a traditionalist, than hitting essentially my gas on my Need for Speed games. I don't know why they went with that design choice. You may say it's nitpicking, but think about it. You're hitting R2 on the controller to start or to confirm like your entries on your keyboard. And now you have to almost always use a face button, usually this one, to start your games. So that design choice, that was a little goofy. Like, if I was getting an Ouya and that happened, I don't think I would be upset about it, because obviously now I'm playing with this. But it's just one of those that makes you go, what's wrong with putting a start button on this thing? You know? Or what's wrong with putting a button that you know? Because how many people really are going to use the triggers? Outside of, like I said, racing games. Okay, if you're playing an FPS or a racing game, fine. But if you're really going to... You don't really use these for the keyboard that much, do you? So why would you make it the R2 button? Just saying. Now let's talk about the actual system. I know this video is going long, but I have a lot to say about it. I love the system. Let's clear that up now. I love it. However, there's some cosmetic things that they did with it that make me go, why? Like, okay, I went to hook the system up last night. Okay? Now, I hooked the system up fine. And I went to go look for the power button on the system. Everything I'm about to tell you is pretty much cosmetic, but it kind of like screams, what the hell? If you've got the PS4, you'll know this. The system is virtually completely black. The hard drive cover is like black, and the other one's like a... It's the type of black that is my DVD, my hack DVD, well, my region-free DVD player. Okay? And my television. And my monitor. And my hard drive. There's a lot of black in this room. And I don't know if this is navy blue or black. I'm colorblind when it comes to that. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, they made the power button blend in basically with the hard drive cover. So, unless I took a flashlight, and this is no joke, and fired that at the system, I couldn't find the power button or the open button. And I'm not kidding you, I couldn't find it. And I'll make it even worse. Do you know where they put the disc tray? First off, the disc tray works on a motor. That's fine. They put the disc tray pretty much right between those two buttons. The best part is, because of the way I was sitting over, I couldn't see it at first. So I'm like trying to stick the disc in, and I had to move it over a little bit because I could hear where the motor was. And when I finally stuck the disc in, I went, so that's where they stuck it right. They stuck it next to the controller ports or the USB ports because that can also be used. Here's another one. They put the USB ports on the front, obviously because of the controllers. That's also where your flash drives go. So if you have a flash drive, say you downloaded the day one patch onto your thumbstick on your flash drive, and you put it in there, and you could stick that in, which I did, and it works fine. So it did it just fine. So that worked. That worked, but it's like, okay, again, because of where you put the disc tray and the way you made the buttons aren't pronounced. They don't really stand out. So anybody that's looking, like, the lighting in this room genuinely sucks, okay? Me and my grandmother are in agreement with that. We would have to take a flashlight or take that lamp, take off the lampshade, and then bring it over here. Well, you can't see it, but over to where the system is to actually, be able to see anything. That's how egregious that actually is. So if you're like the first time person and you're like looking at the system, say you've like never owned a PS3, a PS2, or a PS1. Okay? Well, a PS2, PS3, or PS4. Because the PS2, PS3s, and PS4s were generally black systems. They all had, the PS2 and PS3 had their power buttons and their open buttons stand out because they had like the colorful symbols on there, and they were on the front of the system, but they were pronounced so that you knew what the hell they were and where they were. Here, we don't have that. So there's that issue. Okay? I also found this out when I was trying to unplug the entire controller, when I was trying to take the controller with the USB cord in it. If you unplug the controller and the system's turned off, the system will turn back on. So you literally have to unplug, you would have to unplug the system to unplug one of these from your system. Otherwise it's going to turn on. Oh, and speaking of unplugging the system, let's say you have someone come in your room a lot. Like, let's say you have a cleaning lady, let's say you live with a relative, let's say you live with a roommate. And let's say you know you're not going to be home for a couple hours and they don't play video games. Unplug that system. That power button is so sensitive. If you just graze it a little bit, and the PS3 had this problem too. All you have to do is just graze that button, it turns on. I took my thumb, because I was like feeling around for something, and I hit the button, and I didn't even like press it, I just like grazed over it, and the damn thing turned on. No issue. Now it's fine if you're a person like me that wants to just, get into the game. But if you're, like I said, if you live with a relative, if you live with a roommate, if you live with, if you have somebody come over and they clean your house for you, if you live with a significant other and you know you're not going to be home, and you, like I said, you know they don't play video games, and you put your system somewhere where they could walk past it and accidentally bump it, yeah, I would suggest you turn it off. Have it turned off and unplugged, just because you don't want that system running because we're going to get into this too. I was watching someone do a live, a 24-hour cast with that system. Now that's the ultimate stress test. Do 24 hours with that thing plugged in. Well, this it was more like 22 and a half. They spent like an hour and a half trying to figure things out, how to get it to a capture device. But anyway, it runs hot. Like, if you take your hand and you put it to the back of where the fans are, you'll feel the hot air coming out of it. The system is so small, and you're going to have so many components running in there, you can't... You can play it for a good while, but you couldn't do... If you were trying to do a 72-hour marathon, you couldn't do it with this thing. You would more likely fry the thing before you got done the marathon. It's a shame to say that, because it's a great system. For $400, it better be. But it's just these things that you have to watch out for if you're getting one. I like the controller, but it does have its design issues that made me scratch my head. I love the system, but I'm going to say this again. They need, if they do a hardware revision eventually, and you know they're going to, because this is Sony and they always make like revisions of their systems at least 2 or 3 times over the course of its lifespan. They need to make the buttons, like, if that system was like, you know, in Japan they have like the systems and they'll sometimes be white, blue, and all that. If they did it where like the system was white but the buttons were black, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. But yes, it's a great system. I love this controller. I do, but there are things about it that if I was designing the controller, if I was designing the system, I would have said, this is what we're doing. We need to fix this, we need to fix this, we need to fix this. If somebody showed me the prototype, because my first thought is, okay, I looked at the corner's no start and select button, and I know people say, well, that's a complaint, but, and I know they say, well, that's the option button and that's the share button now, but on some games they will require you to hit like another button, like I said, the X button on Need for Speed Rivals. I don't know what button is required for Assassin's Creed Black Flag yet. But it's just little things that I don't want to say they drive me nuts, but they just make me go, could a system which is good be even better? Because one thing I would have loved to have seen is, like I said, I've always loved to have seen Sony somehow take a cue from Microsoft with these triggers. Because I like the triggers, I like how the way these are sloped up a little bit, but I still love the way the old 360 bumpers and triggers were. I do. And I owned a 360 for about 3 years before finally my last one finally bit the dust. But anywho, those are the impressions on the system. There's the impressions on this. And how long did we go? God damn, we went almost a half hour. So, I guess I will talk to you all later. And until then, my friends, you take care of yourself. You hear me? Oh, real quick before I do forget, January 2nd, 2014 will be the debut of the new web series, or the new YouTube series, The Wondrous World, on this channel. Okay? So on January 2nd, we'll be having some more will be having a wondrous time, and I hope to see you there. Take care, gang.